So Matt, thank you so much for joining us on the You're Not Alone podcast today. I'm super excited to have you on, and in preparation for this episode, I was doing a lot of research, and there are a couple areas of interest for me that it looks like you might have a little bit of expertise in, so I'm super excited to dive into that. But as we kind of kick off the episode, I really just want to give you the floor to give my audience a quick introduction on yourself.
Sure. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on here. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to share what I know, and hopefully your audience resonates with some of the stuff I have to share.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'll give you a bit of my background. Basically, I grew up pretty average childhood, playing sports and things like that. And then my dad, he had for his work, he had a private jet or private airplane, and we, on spring break, one spring break, we took off in the airplane. We were at about 10,000 feet in the air, but something went wrong. No one really ever figured out what exactly happened, but the plane went down. It started going down, and it went down really fast. And unfortunately, I was wearing my seatbelt really loosely. I was 10 years old. I wasn't really thinking. I was like, oh yeah, put it on. It's on. But it wasn't really on securely. But I flew out of my seat, hit my head on the ceiling, and on the side of the window as well. And the plane went down and it landed in mud. But basically, all around us was snow and ice because we got back from a ski resort, from a ski trip. But like I said, we landed in mud, and that's the reason we survived. So we were outside trapped for 10 hours. They couldn't find us. And basically, unfortunately, my mom didn't make it. She lived about hour 8, they said, but unfortunately, she couldn't make it. She didn't make it the whole way. She pretty much kept my sister alive. She, basically hugged onto her and kept her alive with her body warmth. And that's how my sister stayed alive. And my sister ended up, breaking her leg and having to have multiple surgeries. My dad had a head injury and was never the same. He just always had he had bad PTSD after the accident.
Yeah.
And my mom and dad were business partners. So it was really challenging for them to just, it was hard for him to manage his business without his business partner, who was my mom, of course, who passed away. And for me, I had a head injury. So I hit my head on the ceiling, basically, in the window. And I went into a coma for 1 month. So I basically, had to relearn everything. I was like, I couldn't walk by myself. I couldn't even lift my head. I couldn't do anything. After I woke up from the coma, I was like, I wasn't even conscious. I was just like a blob, basically, for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then eventually I was like, oh, that's my sister. Oh, there's my dad. Why am I here? Why am I in the hospital? That was kind of what was going through my head. I was like, where's my mom? That was through my mind. Then I had to, like, this deep down. I was like, okay, something bad happened. Something happened to my mom, and I was afraid to ask it. I was really afraid to just say, okay, where's mom? But eventually, probably about a month after the accident, my dad came out. He's like, hey, I had to tell you, your mom didn't make it. We were in a plane crash, and I had no idea. I was like, what the heck? This caught me totally off guard. I was like, wow, we were in a plane crash for one and mom's gone. I was totally shocked. But so, of course, I got out of the hospital eventually. I think I was in there for about 3 or 4 months. I learned how to walk, how to talk again, how to eat on my own. And, then I went into high school. But the problem was that I had a disability still. I had back problems. And so it was hard for me to walk straight. It was hard for me to walk without having back pain.
Yeah.
And, as I was going through it, high school, of course, I got bullied a little bit. People would talk behind my back, like make fun of me for walking differently or whatever. And I got really hard on myself. I was really hard on myself. I was just feeling like, I don't even know if life is worth living, because I'm just at this point where I feel like I don't have any friends that I really connect with. I don't really have anybody I can, share any really real feelings with. I just feel really alone. I feel alone. And I got diagnosed with depression when I was, I think, 17 or 18.
Yeah.
And, and basically this was my senior year, and I was just really, I was feeling so low. So essentially what happened was my grandma sent me a book in the mail. She sent me a book called Seven Habits of Highly Effective Teens by, I think, Sean Covey.
Yeah.
Stephen Covey's son. Really good book. Really good
Yeah.
book. At first, I was like, "Oh, mom. I mean, oh, grandma. I don't want to read this. This looks silly." But
Yeah.
then I opened it because I really had nothing to do. I was a lot of free time. I just did my homework, played some video games, and that was about it for my childhood until my senior year. My senior year, it said the first chapter, I believe, was on about proactivity and just being proactive. And it's like, really, if you want to get anywhere in life, if you want to change your situation, you can do it. It's only up to you. No one else is going to change for it. You can't wait for things to happen to you. And if you wait for things to happen to you, nothing's ever going to change. Nothing's ever going to happen. You're never going to get that girlfriend you want. You're never going to, make it to college. You're never going to, basically change your beliefs about yourself or what you think about yourself.
Right.
And so that really got to me. I was like, okay, well, there was also a chapter in there like saying, well, most people are actually afraid to talk to strangers, so why not be the person that actually initiates the conversation and just says, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
And so I started doing that. So I was like, I just started talking to people. I feel like I've always been a people person,
Yeah.
but at the time, I was really shy to talk to people. Like, I was embarrassed that they'd make fun of me or something, but that never happened. Once I began to make friends and build more acquaintances with people I actually talk to and like, hey, how's it going? Just started a small conversation and connect with people. And I realized like connection was really, this is what life is about. Like if you can just connect with other people and feel like someone understands you or understands what you're hearing, what you're saying, and like you get them to some degree, like that's one of the best feelings there is, and so I carry that on with me for the next, throughout college and basically, I graduated with a marketing degree and psychology degree because I was always interested in psychology, but but I pursued the marketing to business degree because my dad was like, oh, you can never make money doing psychology. That's you have to become a doctor. I'm
Right.
like, it's too much work. So that's what he was saying.
Right.
But so I went into business. I tried marketing for 4 years or so, but then I realized, I'm not really passionate about this stuff. Like sales is cool. You can make a lot of money doing it, but it's not really doesn't really feed my soul, feed my heart. So at that point, I was like, what's really important to me? And so I think this was maybe 2012 or something. And I was at this point in my life. I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, I don't like my job. I don't know what to do. I'm stuck at this point in my life. I just want to change careers, but I don't want to have to go back to school and get another 10 years to get my doctorate or whatever. Right. I don't want to do that. So I went to a life coach, and I heard about the life coach just from my friend. We were actually having lunch together, and he's like, hey, I just got back from my life coach. I was like, what the heck is a life coach? That sounds ridiculous. This is back in 2012 before life coaches were even really known.
Right.
And so I was like, he was like, yeah, it's someone who kind of helps give you direction, helps you kind of live up to your life purpose and discover your life purpose and kind of helps you get back on track. I'm like, sounds like something I could definitely use. So I called him up the next day and got a session in, and 10 minutes into the conversation, I was just like, this is what I want to do. I want to do what you're doing, asking questions and helping people figure out like what their purpose is, like what's important to them, what drives them. Like, because I've always been like, I love learning about people. I'm very curious about people and why people do the things they do. Why do they respond the way they do?
Yeah,
what really fires them up? I love that stuff.
Yeah,
I love that stuff. And so I was like, yeah, sign up for this course at Coaches Training Institute. And it takes about a year and you'll be solid. Good to go. I'm like, called them up the next day. And then I enrolled, and the next month or so I was took it for a year. And I've just been coaching since. I've also had some side businesses as well, but those are another story, like some Amazon stuff, but mostly just doing coaching because, this is like what's most important to me. This is what I love. And this is like who I've become, based on my past and getting past all these hurdles. But kind of going back a little bit, there was a lot of process, and learning and self-discovery really before I, really got to this point where I feel like I could actually help other people. I've got a wide array of books, and I can see you do too, of just like personal development and ways to
Yeah.
improve the way you feel and how to just, live to your purpose, from people from Eckhart Tolle to, Stephen Covey to, I mean, Dr. Joe Dispenza, all types of different people. And I think this is what really, I could read this all day long. So it's like, now working my career is like living my dream in a
Right.
sense, like living what I love to do is read personal development books, and then basically help people out by teaching them what I learned and what I've actually personally experienced using my
Mm.
own. I've used every single tool that I tell people about. I've used it personally, and I know it works because it works on me. And then of course everybody's different. So like what works for one person may not work for the next, but that's okay. I'm willing to share and willing for people to take, whatever resonates with them. It's kind of the ideal there. But yeah, there's a lot more stuff, a lot more, I guess you could say, trauma and tragedy that I went through in my life regarding my dad. Like I lost him when I was 30.
Mm.
He ended up getting addicted to prescription medications, opioids, because he never really relieved his back pain and his leg pain and just mental health from after the accident. And he just unfortunately passed away from opioids, which
Yeah.
was hard for me because I even though I know he wasn't there 100%, but I still felt a connection with him. Of course, there's like a parent-child connection that you can never
Right.
really replicate, and you never 100% understand like what the special connection is, but there's something there.
Yes.
So yeah, that's pretty much my background in it.
Man, you touch my heart because I mean, what a traumatic situation to go through, and I picture that, and my heart just goes out to you because in that moment, I mean, I resonate. You're waking up from a coma and there's this pit in your stomach and there's a question you don't want to ask because you're afraid of what the answer is going to be. And kind of the aftermath of that, and just really fascinating how reading one book started to spin your life in a different direction and how powerful that is. And when you touched on connection, gosh, that resonated with me so much because I was actually on Instagram yesterday, kind of doing my little, I kind of allow myself every day to just 15, 20 minutes kind of just scroll on IG. I try to keep my social media to a limited amount of time each day. And as somebody who loves personal development, you obviously saw my bookcase, and these are the books that I like selected to put up on the shelf. I've literally got crates. I mean, my wife, like every single day, there's like a book coming in from Amazon, and my wife is like, "You need to like read the books you've bought, Zach." And I have this was like a Tim Ferriss thing, but years ago, Tim Ferriss said that he reads a book until he doesn't feel like reading it anymore, or like he'll pick up and read a section. So I rarely complete a book front to back in the first sitting. So like that's just a little side note. I'm always reading like 5 books at a time, which that's just my preference. But anyways, I'm obsessed with personal development. So I follow some personal development accounts on Instagram. And one of them had just a really, really toxic message yesterday where they had a guy on. He was in his 70s, clearly an entrepreneur, clearly had built businesses. And he was telling an audience that he has no friends, that people who are successful don't have time for friends, and that he's got like 4 or 5 guys that he communicates with. They don't get together and grab beers or get together and hang out or talk. They'll communicate sparingly because none of them have time because they're all busy building businesses. And I just thought to myself, and a younger Zach, early 20s, early, late teens in college, trying to carve out a path, make a name for yourself, might have heard this messaging and internalized this and been like, I don't have time for friends. I need to focus on being quote unquote successful, which in this guy's message was building businesses and making money. And yet what you touched on and what we see in the mental health space over and over and over again is that human connection between two people, between many people, building out a network, a community is so important. It's one of the most important things for your mental health. And I just, when you were touching on that, it really, really resonated with me. And, that's why I started the podcast, to create a community and bring on people like yourself to share those messages and share those stories. And so there's a lot of themes in your story, overcoming obstacles being one of the big ones that jumps out to me first. And then I do want to unpack a little bit of kind of what your life coach, mental health coaching practice looks like. And I have some questions written down there, but I am curious, for my audience, somebody listening who's been through something traumatic, who's at the start of their journey, what is some of the advice that you would give someone for overcoming an obstacle or a challenge?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think one of the most important things is if you can find people to connect with. Again, it goes back to connection. Again, if you can find someone who's going through what you're going through, then you won't feel alone, because a lot of times people who are going through traumatic events feel alone. Like, especially, I'm sure some of your audience has been through depression. Maybe you have in yourself.
Yes, I have. Yes. Definitely.
When you're depressed, the crazy thing is there's millions of people that are depressed.
Yes.
But the problem is we feel isolated. We feel alone when we're depressed. We're like, we feel so alone, especially when we are alone. We literally feel isolated.
Yeah.
But then sometimes to cover that or to feel better, we get around other people and we feel better. When you get around your friends, your kind of depression goes away. But the trick is really to how do you not feel depressed when you're alone? That's kind of the challenging question. But I think really the beginning stages, I think it's really important just to find ways to feel good through your depression, ways to feel happy during your depression. Whether it be even something as simple as playing music you really love, and just zoning out on that, or some people, and this usually after a little bit of personal development work, they get into meditation. And I think meditation is great because it's guided meditations are really good, especially at the beginning, because they'll give you new perspectives, kind of different ways to look at your life. In addition to breathing, I think breathing is way underestimated in our society. Like we're not actually taught how to breathe. I remember reading a book, actually two books like a couple of years ago. One was Wim Hof's book, Wim Hof,
yeah,
that one. Yep. And then another book by James Nestor called Breathe. Heard of that one?
Oh yeah, and his the cover of his book was actually, when I was putting together the cover for my book, which you can obviously see in the background there, his cover was one of the potential like inspirations behind mine, because I meditate every single day. Awesome. Do you meditate at all?
Every day, yeah, every day.
And it's just it's amazing how important your breath is in a sense. And I noticed on your website that you talked about Jay Shetty, and Jay Shetty had like a little excerpt in here at the beginning of his book talking about how everything begins and ends with your breath. It is the most important thing, right? Because it's what keeps you alive, but then it's also a tool that can ground you in the present moment. And your breath, like you just said, it is so important, and it is definitely one of those tools that is underrated. It's I think it's gaining popularity, but in terms of its actual importance, it is arguably the most important tool that we have as human beings at our disposal.
I 100% agree. It is the most important tool, because it's so easy to access. And then if you know how to actually, but a lot of people don't know how to actually breathe. And I remember reading in a few books that it's the actual ideal breath for humans to be in the potential states, the optimal states for mental health and physical health would be when you're at a resting state, of course, when you're resting or sitting down, is to breathe in 5.5 seconds, pause for 3, and then breathe out your mouth for 5.5 seconds. But of course, round it up to 6. So it's breathe in for 6 through the nose, hold for 3, and then breathe out your mouth for 6 seconds and hold for 3. That's the ideal breath for human beings. And I feel like awesome.
It feels good. It really does. It feels calming. Even in that moment, just doing that once or twice really grounds you.
Yeah, it does, and that's the thing. That's the optimal breath, and for thousands of years, people have known this more on the Eastern cultures, but on the Western side, like the U.S. and other Western societies, we deal with more. We focus more on the effect. The cause is unknown, but we can always get to the cause. And I feel like in the Eastern cultures, they get to the cause, and then we deal with the effect. You deal with the effect by taking medication. You deal with the effect by and of course, the effect is the feeling, the anxiety. You deal with the anxiety, which is from something else unknown, unless you really look into it. But you deal with the anxiety, which is the effect, with medication, or you deal with the headache with medication. But I stopped my migraines with breath work. I used to have migraines almost every day. It was awful in my early 20s.
Yeah.
Then I realized how to breathe. I learned how to breathe. And I would just throughout the day, I just take a deep breath into the nose, hold it for like 5 seconds, and then I breathe out my mouth, breathe out everything. And of course, one of the things I teach all of my clients is the 4-7-8 breath, which has gained a lot of popularity now. You probably heard of it too.
Yeah.
4-7-8 breath for anyone who's watching. It's great for reducing anxiety, great for relieving worry, stress, things like that.
Is that different from box breathing, or is it the same thing?
It's different from box breathing. Yeah.
So tell me about this then, because I know box breathing, and box breathing then too, right?
Yeah, I don't really use box breathing, but it's a good one too. It's because it's really simple.
It's super simple.
To remember.
So tell me about this other method, because I actually don't know this. I know box breathing. That's what I know.
Awesome. Okay, yeah. So box breathing is basically 4-4-4. So it's like breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4. Really simple.
Yep.
That's it. And then this 4-7-8 breath is actually you breathe in through the nose for 4 seconds. So you can do this right now.
Okay.
Breathe in through the nose for 4 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and breathe out your mouth every last little bit for 8 seconds. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay.
It flexes the abs there at the bottom.
Yeah.
I like that.
So the way exactly. Yeah. So the way it works is this allows your body to relax, because when you breathe out longer than you breathe in,
yes,
you're going to feel relaxed.
Yes.
That's the way the body works. It's basically inside your body. It's like, okay, when you breathe in, your cells are expanding inside your body. So they're growing, they're getting bigger. Yep. And then when you breathe out, the longer you breathe out, the more the cells shrink and just kind of relaxing, just like hanging out in there. So it's like, and that's why you feel more relaxed when you breathe out longer than you breathe in. And you'll probably notice, like when you're sleeping, if you when you wake up, right after you wake up, usually your in breath is a lot shorter than your breath out, because you're in this relaxed state. And if you ever have any problems sleeping, there's another breath I created. I don't know. I didn't create it, but I just thought of it and I started using it. But then I heard other people doing it. So I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But what you can do, I do this almost every night, is I breathe in the nose for 2 seconds. So 1, 2. Then I breathe out the nose for 4 seconds. So twice as long. Or you can do 4, 8. So breathe in for 2 seconds, then out for 4.
Yeah.
Breathe in for 2, out for 4.
It's a 1-to-2 ratio in to out.
Right. Exactly. 1-to-2 ratio.
Which makes total sense. And that is one thing that I did. I actually learned. So I've been meditating since 2016, but I actually just learned this year because I went to a sound bath with with an hour-long guided meditation. I was practically melted into the floor. And it wasn't the first time that I'd done something like that. I've been to sound baths, gone to sound baths for years, gone to guided meditations in person for years. But this particular individual who guided us through the sound bath and meditation, she was so good at what she did, but she was explaining exactly what you're talking about, that exhale, the longer that exhale is with the shrinking down of the cells is what creates relaxation. So if we want to wake ourselves up, you flip that ratio and you make that in breath longer than the out breath and vice versa. And that was the first time I connected those dots. But as a meditator, I realized that when I start to fall into that deeper state, it was like I connected the dots, because it was like, that's naturally what happens, is that out breath becomes longer, almost to the point where, and she had us in the class, right? Like, get to the point where the abdominal region is flexing a little bit. You're exhaling so much. And it's so powerful.
It's just like at the very end, you just push it out, you know, and the more you push it out, it's like you are flexing your abdominal region, right?
I love that. And I love that you just shared that, the 4-7-8 method. I'd never heard of that. And then I love the 1-to-2 ratio. And for everyone listening, you can, like what Matt was saying, you can do 2-4, you can do 4-8. I mean, shoot, you could do 6-12. I'm sure if you really wanted to get after it.
Depends on how big your lungs are, right?
Exactly. As a great way to help you fall into a deep state of relaxation, either on the fly when you need it, or at night when you're working to fall asleep.
And it works really well. Yeah. So that's just one method. I have a few other methods, but yeah. So I think it's really cool that you brought in, you know, sound, the sound bath, because I've been into crystal healing, sound bowls, like doing, and I think those are really amazing for putting your mind into different states of mind. Kind of thinking differently. I think it's really, really amazing. It's almost like music. Like when you listen to a song, you feel different. Somehow something inside you kind of changes, or whether you get more irritated because you don't like the song, or you just feel this, or you feel like a deep state of relaxation.
And that was one thing I actually wanted to say too. You just sparked in my mind. And James Clear talks about this in his book, Atomic Habits. Not sure if you've been able to pick your way through that book yet, but have you?
Yeah.
Excellent.
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a good read.
I'm on his email list.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. I'm a big fan of James, but he talks about everything that we do in life, and this is kind of what you're talking about with the breath work, is an attempt to change our state. Change our physiology, change our state, change the way that we feel. We're looking for a desired outcome. And through the breath, through connection with friends, these are a few ways. And again, just to bring it back to what you and I are talking about, is how to overcome obstacles, which is what you help your clients through. These are ways that you can change your state. And then obviously you were just touching on music, right? Like depending on the song, either you liked it or you didn't, that changes your state.
100%. Yeah. And I think change, like even Tony Robbins, I'm sure you know Tony Robbins.
Oh yeah.
He's all about changing your state. That's kind of where I first learned about it. One of the first books I read, I think it was 19 or 20, I read Awaken the Giant Within. Have you read that one?
I've read it. He has Unleash the Power Within, right? Is that one of his books? That's the one that I've read.
Yeah, I think that's the event. It could be the event, but it's a good one. Yeah.
So
good
maybe
event.
That's what it is, because I've been to the event. So I am a fan of Tony's, but the way that I consumed him was one of his books, one of his OG books, been to his in-person workshop. I'm sure if you pull it down,
you probably read this one, Unlimited Power. This is other OG book.
That is the exact one that I've read, Unlimited Power.
This is more so about neuro-linguistic programming, which I think is a fantastic tool. If you know, the people listening to your podcast, you definitely learn some things from neuro-linguistic programming as well. Just ways to change your state, because that's what it's all about. Is changing the way you think with the words you use. Yeah. You know, even taking negative words. You know, like hate, the word hate. You know, if you kind of remove that from your vocabulary, remove the word hate from your vocabulary, and replace that with just don't like or not a fan of.
Yeah.
You know, then your whole state will feel differently, because it's like the more negative energy or the more negative talk you use and put out into the world, and when you're talking to other people, the more negativity is going to come back to you. It's kind of like it's kind of like the law of attraction. But the more positive things you say out into the world and the universe, the more positivity you'll get back. And it goes the same thing. Like, think about when you're in a conversation, like you're talking to someone and you're in a really good mood, you know, they're responding to you back in a really positive, good mood. But if you talk to someone and you're like really negative and complaining, guess how they're going to respond back to you? Normally pretty negative as well. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like being really conscious and aware of kind of the words you use and kind of the energy you're bringing to each conversation. It's really important too.
And those words that you use to fuel your emotions. So it's almost this vicious cycle that I see a lot of people get trapped in too, where it's like, even down to the root, the belief system or the identity that they have, where, you know, somebody might say, well, I'm a realist or I'm more of a pessimist. And while I do believe that there's like it's like a sliding scale, right? Like there's some people have a propensity to maybe look at the glass half empty, while others naturally might have the propensity to look at a glass half full. That ability to work on that, you can change that perspective over time. And is that what neuroprogramming linguistics is in a nutshell? Is it starting to audit the words that you use as you relate to things in your life, people, places, things?
Yeah, yeah. In a sense, it is. In a sense, NLP is it has a lot of just the way you word things, and so you can modify and just put out different outcomes based on what you want. You know, it's even focuses on body language too, like mirroring the person, because ultimately it's about connection. Again, going back to the communication and the connection.
Yeah.
If you understand NLP, then you'll understand how to connect with people at an even deeper level.
Okay, so
with
it's
your body language,
neurolinguistics programming. I said that in the
yeah,
opposite
that's
order. Okay.
okay.
So
Yeah.
NLP, so it gets down to the science behind connecting with other human beings, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Essentially. Yeah.
And how
That's
you
good.
relate to the world, because I think one thing that you said that really resonated with me was like, if you cut the word hate out of your vocabulary and just switch it to a less kind of aggressive word, something
Intense.
more
Yeah.
mild, something more neutral,
Right.
it's going to change the way that you feel about that thought or that thing or that person in your life. It almost, in a sense, it's a way to kind of throw some water on the heat, you know, to cool things
Right.
down a little bit.
Yeah. And mostly, I think most importantly, it'll change the relationship with yourself, because our own worst enemy is 99.9% going to be us, our heads,
Yeah.
our thoughts,
Yeah.
most of the time. So so it's important to be aware of the words you use externally, of course, because those are the same words that you're going to be thinking in your own head, you know, before you say something or whatever you're going to
Right.
think about yourself, are words that you also use on the external world in most cases. And most
Okay.
people are much harder on themselves as opposed to the world around them. Like most people wouldn't treat their friend, you know, that they're trying to help, the same way they teach themselves. Like, come on, what's wrong with you? Why can't you get this? You know,
Yeah.
people beat themselves up, and that's kind of where that terminology comes from, beating yourself up. Like, you're not physically punching yourself, but you know, you're
But you're
beating
having a
yourself
war
up.
up here.
Yeah, you're having your own battle in your head. Right?
Yes, absolutely. And I do resonate with that so much. And I notice that with myself too. And it's so interesting when I'm more kind to myself and I really observe my thoughts and I do some of that neurolinguistic programming that I didn't actually put a label to, that I will from here on out, where I'm like, wait a second, you don't have to talk to yourself like that, man. Like, that's not really necessary.
Yeah.
You're not all that bad. You're a pretty good guy. It seems like everything else in my life becomes, I don't want to say more mild, but I'm kinder to everybody and everybody around me and everything around me. And I'm like, one thing I've noticed is I feel like I fell into this place where little things were annoying me. Little things would frustrate me. I'd be traveling to go speak at a university and I would find out that I wasn't able to check in early into my room. And my brain would get irritated and frustrated. And I started being like, okay, back in 2016, back in 2017, when you were the lowest you'd ever been, severely anxious, deeply depressed, experiencing thoughts of suicide, little irritations didn't bother you at all because so much of my life felt like it had been taken from me. I was just grateful to be alive. And now that I'm in a better space, quote unquote, little things I noticed started irritating me. And so as these little irritations started popping up, I just started auditing it, becoming aware, noticing when they would come into my brain and be like, flip the script, like, that's actually really not that big of a deal. Actually, rather than not being able to check into my room early, how about I use this as an opportunity to go explore the city I'm in, and maybe I can go grab a bite to eat at a local restaurant, and then I can go check into my room. Or, I missed the shuttle time that I wanted to make to get to the airport. In the past, I feel like I would notice that irritating me. And now it's more like, oh, this is an opportunity to like grab breakfast at the hotel, like local whatever it might be. So just like really becoming aware of and auditing my thoughts and kind of saying, hey, like there aren't so many things in life that are really that big of a deal that need like a real big visceral intense reaction.
Good. Yeah, and that's amazing. And one other thing you can also when that's happening, it's like taking a step back and observing your thought, because first you recognize the feeling. You're feeling a certain way. We're feeling irritated. Well, the question is, why am I feeling irritated? What is irritating me? Like taking the opportunity to step back and observe it. Like, what is really irritating me? Oh, it's that I can't check into my room at this time. Okay, that's irritating. So then it's like, okay, well now at this point, how can I change my perspective or change my assumption or change my belief about this,
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing. You're like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to go explore the city. Awesome. I'm going to go do that. So it's like, just, and it's almost like asking yourself, okay, well, if my mom, for instance, if my mom were to give me some advice, in this situation, just imagine her, close your eyes and just imagine her like your mom floating up, way up, and then just like imagine her coming back down and just like putting her hand on your shoulder and just saying, hey, go for a walk, enjoy the city. You're not going to be in the city for very long. Like kind of just tapping into what they would actually say, kind of like if you were them for a few minutes or a moment. And just like asking, what would my mom say, or what would my best friend say? What would my sister tell me to do?
Yeah.
Something like that. So that's another cool strategy you can do when you're in those situations.
I like that. I like that a lot. And something that you just brought, and that I love the theme of like, how would your best friend talk to you? And like a loving best friend, not somebody who is verbally abusive. Which people who listen to my show, they might be struggling with relationships where it's not healthy. But if you were in a healthy relationship, somebody who spoke to you in a loving way, how would they communicate with you? How would they give you advice? That's how you want to start to think about communicating with yourself. And it's funny that you bring that up too, because another thing I noticed was it was control. The brain craves control. So in these situations, I didn't feel like I had control, and it was quote unquote irritating me. And the more and more that I started relinquishing control in areas of my life where I was like, this is so inconsequential. It doesn't really matter. 10 minutes from now, a day from now, certainly 10 years from now, this is not going to matter at all. Like, just let it go. Relinquish control.
Let it go. And then there's two things you can do right now. Like, there's a really good book right here. Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins. Have you read this one?
No, but I'm gonna jot it down on my list right now.
One of the best methods of letting things go. I'm not going to go into it on this conversation, but he has one of the best methods of letting things go. Say you're feeling annoyed, say you're feeling irritated, say you're feeling angry. You can let it go by just sitting with it in your body. And I'll explain it in a nutshell. You basically feel. You think of the situation that's bothering you, and then you kind of like, okay, this really makes me angry when I imagine, my mom talking to me like this, for example. And it really irritates me. Yeah. And then you're like, where in my body do I feel this anger or this irritation? Okay, well, my stomach. I feel it in my stomach. Okay, then you ask yourself, what are the sensations I feel in my stomach? At this point, Okay, well, I feel tightness, I feel tension, I feel pulling. Whatever the sensations are, just be with them, because that's why emotions are there. Emotions are there so that you can feel them, be with them. Yep. And so then at this point, you just tell your body like either relax or calm or relieve. You just repeat that word almost like a mantra. Just
Mm.
relieve, relieve, relieve. Close your eyes. Then take deep breaths in through your nose. Just imagine the breath going right to your stomach where you're feeling these sensations.
Yeah.
Sit with the sensations in silence for 5 minutes. It'll be gone.
Yeah.
All that anger, irritation will be gone in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, so I'm really
Yeah.
interested to pick apart this book and get into it because I'm reading an acceptance and commitment therapy book right now, and what you're talking about in terms of turning inward into those emotions, that's a part of mindfulness and
Mhm.
something that I utilize in my day to day, which really I learned through meditation. But learning to sit with those emotions and watch them come and go like clouds in the sky
Mhm.
is something that I think is such an important mindset, which is what you're talking about, and such an important tool that people can deploy at any given moment. That teaches you to have a healthy relationship with your emotions. And I just really appreciate you sharing that. So to kind of bring things full circle here. So we're talking about overcoming a challenge. You've talked about if somebody's at the start of their journey, human connection, building out that support system is number one. Number two, you talked about connecting to your breath, meditation being a key component. What else would you recommend?
Yeah, another way, it's kind of like with us as humans, we have the ability to either repress emotions, like suppress them,
Yeah.
keep them inside, or we can express them, or we can let them go using the method I just explained a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, is the worst thing you want to do is repress the emotions, unless you're like in a social situation. You don't want to like start talking about like, oh, everything's going on. You don't want to do that, so
Right.
you want to repress or suppress the emotions.
Yeah.
But you can always bring out a journal, write down all your thoughts and feelings. I have a
Mm.
lot of
Mm.
clients who love that,
Yep.
just journaling and writing anything that's on their mind. And you don't even have to go back and reread it. I remember reading one of Tim Ferriss's book, um, Tools of Titans. One of the interviews in there explained a brain dump. You
Yeah.
probably remember it. But like
Yep.
right after you wake up, sometimes you got a lot of crap on your mind. It's just like, writing it down, grabbing a journal or a piece of paper, writing out 5 minutes, whatever's on your mind, just to get it out, you
Yeah.
know. And it's really about expression, because you can either talk about it with someone, but most of the time, either the person you right in front of you isn't somebody who wants to hear your crap,
Yeah.
or isn't somebody you can really trust to talk about this with,
Yeah.
or B, it's just like you don't feel like talking about it. So grab a journal, write it out.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing right there. Also, like I wrote a book back in 2015 called How to Live in the Present Moment 2.0, and I think that's also a great way to let go of the past, stop worrying about the future. Is just to be in the present moment.
Mm.
And most people don't know how to really tap into the present moment. They're like, oh, I'm present, but they don't really know. So, but the easiest way is I actually learned from Eckhart Tolle. I don't have his book right now, but this is the author. I like, this is a really good book if you haven't read it. A New Earth,
Oh
fantastic
yeah.
book.
I have that book on the shelf behind me.
Yeah, one of the best books I've ever read. But he wrote a book called The Power of Now that I read back in 2010, I think.
Yeah.
And that book really allowed me to, or showed me how to really be aware of my senses. And it's like, okay, what do I see in front of me? Well, I see a wall, I see a computer, what's outside the window. It's like really stepping outside of your thoughts in your head, where we live a lot of our lives in our head,
Yeah.
with our thoughts. So we drop the thoughts, we put the thoughts to the side, and then we tap into our five senses. What do I see? Well, I see, this right in front of me. Who am I talking to? Like I see
Mm.
you, of course,
Yeah.
fully present with this conversation. So, and then it's like also like, what do I smell? What do I hear? I hear birds outside the window. Just really tap into that. And then,
Mm.
what do I feel? Like, okay, well, I feel my feet on the floor. How's that feel? Feel my arms on the armrest. How's that feel? Huh? Pretty cool. And if you want to go even deeper, it's like you can go inside your body and feel like, okay, well, I feel this tension in my heart area. I feel like there's some tightness in my lower back. I
Yeah.
feel like a little tingling in my foot. Just all these different sensations. As you kind of do a
Mm.
body scan, kind of like this body scan, but just that's ways to get in the present moment and just sit with that for 5-10 minutes and just get really present.
Yeah.
I think that's another cool strategy, and that's a skill more so to live, to be in the present moment. It's a skill that, of course, is like strengthening a muscle. The more you go to the gym, the more you practice this, the stronger you're going to get. You know, another thing I'd recommend is to get as active as you can. I know, and when you're in depression, it's really hard to get outside, and you just want to sleep a lot. As I did, I wanted to sleep all day and just like not do anything. I was really lazy. Um, but really getting outside, getting that sunshine, that vitamin D is really important. Just for not only for your mental health, but for your body and your skin and everything. It has a lot of benefits. But if you can get outside, go for a little jog for, I don't know, 10 minutes. Or I started at 5 minutes, just jogging really slowly for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I realized, okay, I feel better. Then the next week I did 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, good. Next week, by week number 3, I was doing 15 minutes. And I continued this until I got to about 30 minutes. And now I make it a regular thing to do it 30 minutes, which I've been doing for a while now. I do that 2 to 3 times a week, just jogging, and it feels amazing. Or you can go to the gym, lift some weights. You know, you'll feel better in the process of doing it. And then afterwards, you'll usually feel better. And if you catch yourself in your head, like thinking, like comparing yourself, just say, stop comparing, stop. Really, just tell yourself that literally. And just really focus, get in the present moment. Like, okay, I'm lifting this weight right now. I'm doing this curl. How does this feel?
Like, actually really talk through the motion. And yeah. And exactly. it brings you into the present. And I love what you said about when you talked about that progression from 5, 10, 15 minutes. James Clear talks about this in his book, but he calls it the 2-minute rule. Oh yeah. And essentially he says, you know, whenever you're building a new habit, so for what you're talking about is habit building, and I love that you touched on exercise. And absolutely, when you're depressed, when you're anxious, it can feel like the hardest thing in the world to get out of bed, to brush your teeth, to do basic kind of human hygiene practices. And you and I, it sounds like, have both been there. And so I'm very empathetic and compassionate towards people that are in that space right now. But if 5 minutes feels like too much, do what James Clear says. Take 120 seconds, right? 2 minutes, and that's it. Like, what he talks about is maybe in your first week, to the person listening right now, you're like, okay, I hear what Matt has to say. I want to start running. 5 minutes feels like too much. Start with 60 seconds. As soon as 60 seconds is done, you're done. It doesn't matter even if you feel like continuing to run. I suppose if you feel like continuing to go, you can. But James really advocates for that 2-minute rule to really start to build a habit. And it's funny, I started doing that with abs at the gym. I hate doing abs. I hate it so much. I hate the feeling. It was always something that I would leave to the end of the workout, and I would say, oh, well, I'll just do it at the end of the workout. And then the end of the workout would come, and I'd be like, I'm tired. I think I'll do it tomorrow. And I started implementing the 2-minute rule, and it's funny, but it really works. I'm still at 2 minutes, and that's where I'm at in my journey with it. I do 2 minutes at the end of every workout on abs. It's funny, though, because now I'm more consistent, and I am still getting results. And it talked about that kind of that emotional aspect. I do feel better about myself. Not that I derive all of my confidence from my physical appearance. I think that that's a dangerous path to go down. But I feel good about myself in the sense of like, hey, I said I would do 2 minutes of abs, and I did, and that feels good.
It feels like an accomplishment. Totally.
Exactly.
I definitely agree. And I think it's also important to start small, especially with the new things, because it's so easy to get overwhelmed with, you start, I'm going to do my first day running. I'm going to run 20 minutes. I'm going to run 15 minutes, and you get like burnt out way too fast. And everyone knows about burnout. So it's kind of like, just start really small, 2 minutes, then do 5 minutes. And then the next week do 10 minutes. And the next week do 15 minutes. Just start really slow. And maybe even go slower than that. 2 weeks. 2 weeks it can change every modify 5 minutes or whatever you'd like to do. But I think that's really key.
Yeah, I agree. And so I love the things that you've touched on, because these are all of the lifestyle behaviors that I really became intentional with in my life too. where all of these things that you're talking about, I do in my daily, weekly life, but all through the lens of my brain. Like I don't even, when I exercise, as of late, I've been exercising a little bit more with the intentionality of like, hey, I'd like to transform my body a little bit, but it is way less about the physical outcome and so much more about priming your physiology. Of course, I agree with that. But it's that emotional aspect, the psychology behind it. When I meditate, I feel like I'm in a better brain space. When I exercise, I feel more calm. When I get 8 to 10 hours of sleep, I feel more energized and more focused, in a better mood. When I journal, something that you talked about, I feel like I have less racing thoughts. When I hang out with friends, when I spend time with my wife, I feel more connected rather than spending all of my time working on this business. I've learned that, okay, sure, almost getting back to the guy with that unhealthy messaging on Instagram, like, I could build a business. It could become big. It could be medium sized, could be small. But if I don't have any friends or anybody to like share that with, what's the point? What's the point? Like, we're meant to connect.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's all about balance. Like, I think it's important to. I know me. I did the same thing in my late 20s. I was really all about my business, but then I realized, what? I gotta step back into more balance. I have to connect with more people. I need to have a better health. It's all about your health, and even a spiritual portion of you needs to be integrated into your life, such as meditation, even speaking gratitudes are a good way to tap into the spirituality. And I'm not talking about religion or anything like that, but just a spiritual, like your spiritual sense of self.
Yeah.
Because it's like your inner guide, your inner wisdom, like tapping into that part of you. Like everybody's got a little part of wisdom inside themselves that says, "Oh, I think it'd be great if you tapped into the gratitudes or meditated." It's like that. But I think that's really important for balance. And then of course your health, which is your physical, things like that, and relationships. You have to have a balance.
I agree. So I know that we're getting to the top of the hour here. So we went over the 45 minutes, but this I notice tends to happen when I'm enjoying myself in a conversation. One thing I want to touch on before we close out here is hypnosis. It seems like you've got a little bit of knowledge in that area. Can you tell me a little bit more about the benefits of hypnosis?
Oh yeah, I love hypnosis. A lot of my clients, I do that for. It's nothing crazy. It's not like you're gonna start barking like a dog. That's kind of silly stuff. It's magic or whatever, magic shows. But it more so, the hypnosis is kind of like where you tap more into the unconscious mind, in the subconscious mind, where people aren't really aware of their thoughts. But while you're taking people to the state of mind where they're actually feeling a state of mind where they're so relaxed, almost like meditation. You get to the similar states where you feel so relaxed and just so at peace. Yeah. That's kind of what it's like going through hypnosis. But of course, with a hypnosis, you have an intention behind it. Your intention is to help the person with whatever they're going through, whether it be guilt, releasing the guilt that they've been holding for many years, stress, anything like that they're holding on to, any form of negativity. And the way it works inside your brain is basically that there's parts of your brain. There's all types of different brain waves, like alpha brain waves. There's beta brain waves, and the beta brain waves are kind of like the fast ones that we're operating at all times. When we're working, when we're talking, we're in the beta brain waves, which is like we're awake. And then it gets to the alpha states when you're a little more relaxed. Is the alpha states, and then when you begin to get into this level of hypnosis where you just feel relaxed and transformative is basically what it leads to, transformation. You're in the gamma states and the theta states, and those are just so relaxed. And a lot of times it's even like watching TV, because when you're watching TV, you'll notice sometimes you'll watch advertisements and then all of a sudden you'll want whatever's being advertised on TV, because you're in that state of mind. You're not in a beta state, you're not in an alpha state, but you're more so in a theta or gamma state, just like la-di-da, not really paying attention, but subconsciously you're like, oh, this hamburger sounds really good, even though I don't even eat hamburgers anymore, or this toy looks really fun for my kid. It's just like you get into these states of mind where you just then that's why advertisements work so well on TV, because people get into this hypnotic trance state where they're not really analyzing what they're thinking, but they're just kind of going with it. So it mostly, in a nutshell, hypnosis takes you out of the analytical mind, the beta mind, which is the beta brainwaves are the analytical mind, and even the alpha states are sometimes analytical a little bit, but what it does is it takes you out of there and then puts you in and gives you a new frame of mind, based that supports you instead of works against you. Okay, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so basically it's doing healing at the subconscious level. That's hard to reach when you are in that analytical state of mind, or one of those brainwaves that you just touched on.
Exactly. And then if you kind of have it's much more difficult if the person doesn't believe that hypnosis can work. There's no way, they believe that there's no way this can possibly work.
Yeah,
it's more challenging, because they're analyzing the whole way through, and then you can't really tap into that part of them. But when they just relax and just sit down and just be like, okay, this could work, maybe.
That makes sense.
Then usually changes happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Totally. I think that's really, really cool. And there's somebody here in Orange County where I live that does hypnosis, and I think I will be reaching out to her after this because I'm interested to potentially go through that experience. So awesome. as we wrap up the episode, I wonder, what is one piece of advice you would give someone who is right at the start of their mental health journey?
Oh, that's okay. Good question. Let's see. I'd probably say, find someone to connect with. Find, someone, whatever you're going through, just connect with people that are going through the same thing, whether it's depression, anxiety. Even if you can't find an actual person, there's a lot of groups and forums online where you just find people and then you feel understood. You feel like you're heard, and kind of like, it's like I remember me when you might resonate with this, but like when I was little, when I was like, not little, but when I was like 18, 19, 20, I was going through depression, and I found a band that really resonated with me. I was like, oh my God, these guys are singing about exactly what I'm feeling. I feel these exact same ways. Yeah. There's Linkin Park.
There you go.
And and Linkin Park, the album Hybrid Theory, it's like, oh my God, this is exactly what I'm going through. So even finding music that you can like connect with in certain ways, and that really brings a level of just like peace inside you. Like, I'm not alone. I'm not doing this all by myself. I have someone else who's going through the same stuff as me. So overall, it's just find someone or something to connect with.
And that is the whole reason why the title of my book is You're Not Alone. The title of the podcast is You're Not Alone, because of what you're talking about. I think that knowing that there's other people going through the same thing as you, that you don't have to bear the burden all by yourself is that first step to feeling hope, to then getting on that path to recovery. So Matt, I love that advice. I can tell that connection is huge for you, and I really appreciate you coming on to the show. How can people connect with you?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me at mattgmorriscoaching@gmail.com. That's mattgmorriscoaching.com. Or you can text me even 619-254-2868. Happy to help any way I can. I'm 100% here for you guys.
Awesome. And are you on any of the social platforms?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Mental Health Healing Man, and that's also on Facebook too. Instagram and Facebook, but Instagram's my main channel for that stuff. Mental Health Healing Man.
Awesome. Mental Health Healing Man. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show today, Matt. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll have you on again soon. There are many different topics still yet to be covered, so I appreciate you. Thank you for all that you do, and we will talk again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's such a good time to talk to you. Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.